Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me to talk about cybersecurity. Now, there are two types of organizations in today's world: those who have suffered a cyber attack and those who just don't know they have. Now, that knowledge and understanding really changes things in your psyche. And when it comes to cyber attacks, organizations don't necessarily feel the pain the day something occurs. Hackers are very, very patient. Now at AIG, we have an outstanding level of policies and procedures on how to handle information properly. We have a raft of compliance measures, but none of this equals security. Hence why I'm asking for your permission today to take action to implement a focused and robust cybersecurity strategy. Now, we have valuable assets in this business and we must protect them for our business, we must protect them for our customers and also for ourselves. And that asset is data. Now, we're rich with data being a general insurer, and this is really our lifeblood. It makes us unique, but it also makes us a soft target. Assets such as customer and employee sensitive and or personal information really requires a heightened level of security. And the business impact is very clear. The threat is real. I was reading a Juniper report which talks about cybersecurity, and it says by the end of 2019, the cost of data breach to global organizations will be $2.1 trillion. Now, putting aside the financial impact, the costs in terms of reputational damage, customer confidence is significant and many times crippling. And if you're fortunate enough as a business to recover from those damaging events and circumstances, it's really going to take a long time to redeem yourselves and come back from that. And it's going to take money, time, and effort. All it really takes is one click. So my goal is really to avoid the "I told you so" moments here at AIG. Now, in addition to protecting these valued assets, there are some laws that we must comply with. So first and foremost, being a large global multinational firm and a large firm here in Australia, we must comply with the Australian privacy principles. And if we mistreat or disrespect these laws, which govern healthy protection for everyone, in particular that of our customers, this may trigger a serious breach. If we do trigger a breach, we are then legally obligated to respond to the notifiable data breach scheme, which I believe come into effect in Australia in February of 2018. And look, as AIG handle personal information such as bank accounts, credit card details, and other forms of records, we must comply. We must notify the Australian Information Commissioner, which is the OAIC, and it really goes a long way in allowing those individuals to understand that we may have lost or mistreated their data, and what they should do to respond to that to ensure that they avoid any harm, either being physical or financial. Also, what does this mean for AIG as well, in addition to what are our assets? What do they look like? Where are the gaps? Now, you'll be interested to hear that I have undertaken a risk analysis of our capability to defend ourselves from cyber attacks, and we have many gaps, and they need to be plugged to ensure we have a strong cyber security posture. And ultimately, this allows us all to go home and sleep better at night. To give you some examples, we have many more endpoints in our business today than we have had over the last 5 to 10 years, creating a lot more vulnerabilities and a lot more ways in to access our network. We have 80,000 staff around the world. Most have laptops they take home, mobile phones that they take home, and they can access our network remotely from anywhere in the world. We have cloud computing. We have challenges currently around perimeter access. Most people have access to everything. My plan is to have a zero trust model and only give those access to softwares, platforms, networks that allow them to perform their job or their daily routine and tasks. An example would be, instead of giving everyone access to the Facebook application, we may give only that of our marketing team access, but we may restrict access to those in our financial team. Therefore, just best protecting our business as best we can. We also deal with a number of third-party firms who integrate into our systems, and we have limited knowledge of their ability to secure their IT and how that works and links with ours. So there's a lot of things that we really need to understand better. I have a plan for this, but essentially all those things increase attack surface, leaving us vulnerable to attacks such as malicious software, being malware, which is a really big target today. We have phishing threats. We also have insider threats, and I don't mean intentional employees on an intentional basis trying to harm the business. It could be by complete accident due to lack of knowledge. So in collaboration with the board, I'd like to discuss these risks in depth to get a clear understanding of what your risk appetite is after knowing what you value from an asset perspective. And then let's develop a risk treatment plan. And what I mean by that is, of what we value, what can we afford to accept should something go wrong? What must we avoid when it comes to risk? What must we look to mitigate by putting plans and measures in place to prevent it from happening? Because some of those risks are potentially not 100% preventable. And also, what can we transfer and have some shared responsibility where we can either use other vendors, or insurance is another great example, but we need to get very clear on what it is we're transferring and what we get in return for that and what the cost is. Ultimately, protecting our customers should be our top priority to ensure that we maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data we hold. Importantly, we all have a role to play. The board, including the CEO and the COO, should help define the scope, the objectives, and the priorities, so we're very clear on what is it that we value. The Chief Information Security Officer is responsible for implementing and executing that strategy. And lastly, everyone else. And everyone else, there's a lot more everyone else than there is the board and there is the CISO. So everyone else, really what our plan is to impart knowledge to all staff within the business. And we want to push that knowledge right out to the edge of the business to essentially create a human firewall. And our employees in this business, the 80,000 strong, will be our first line of defense, making people aware on how to keep the bad guys out, but most importantly, how not to let them in. We want to be in a position where AIG is vigilant and ready to respond. And mind you, we must do all of this whilst remaining competitive and being able to conduct our business efficiently. I've got some high-level plans on hiring a cybersecurity team with expertise who can monitor and deploy techniques to ensure that we prevent attacks and most importantly, data breaches. I've got plans on implementing a zero trust model, creating very sound and robust perimeters where only those who we authorize get access to certain networks and platforms, as I mentioned earlier. We also want our IT team and compliance team to partner with businesses to help us identify where our vulnerabilities lie and how we improve on them. Lastly, we want to make sure that we build a team that helps us develop threat intelligence so we can start to preempt what's going to occur, how it's going to happen, and what we need to do to defend ourselves from that. Most importantly, if something does go wrong, it's okay. I've developed an incident response plan, which I'll call IRP, should a data breach occur. And this articulates that the compromise of any confidential or company information, whether it be customers, employees, or individuals, could potentially be a breach. And also articulates how this can occur. And it can occur by any malicious acts by internal or external parties, by human error or failure in handling information properly, or just a lack of security systems in place that have let us down. In this incident response plan, I've clearly laid out what the assets are that should be covered by this plan. Most importantly, who are the individuals within the business, such as the stakeholders and people within certain business units, who are responsible and accountable for certain response mechanisms, so that every business unit complies and every individual is clear on the actions that they must take to ensure everyone is safe and that we meet our legal obligations. The beauty about this plan is I've broken it down in stages so that we are prepared. We can quickly identify the breach. We can contain and remove the threat so that we can recover as a business. And most importantly, how do we learn from these circumstances to prevent it from happening again? In closing, I want you to think about our philosophy and our approach and our culture towards protecting ourselves, the building we're in, and the workplace when it comes to fire. Let's think about a ferocious fire. Now, our diligence in how we prevent, how we detect, how we respond and recover from fire is really built into our DNA. It's just a natural part of our thinking. This building we're in today has probably been around for 50 or 100 years, and it's never had a fire. Albeit, we are very robust and never get complacent. Should a fire occur, we know how to respond. And it should be no different to having a robust cybersecurity strategy. Cyber attacks are definitely a peril and a hazard. They are becoming much more sophisticated. It is not going away anytime soon, and we need to take action. Thank you.